We're now at the point that hopefully you have the 4 steps solid-ish in your brain. So you feel really comfortable with the idea of how can you get something to move across the screen. And we could now start piggyback on this idea and add more shapes on using the same variables, and just so we can get some like more interesting patterns than just a single one. So for example, here I have the circle that we had from the last practice where we were just moving it across the screen, and I had one variable for the x and one variable for the radius, for the width and the height, and they were growing at different levels, and then I had another variable for the color. So what we're going to do now is we're going to duplicate the circle and just make some little tweaks so that the circles aren't right on top of themselves. I'll show you another example here. So here's an example where we have multiple shapes and they're just all using the same variables with just slight little tweaks. And I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so let's start with a circle. Let's just play this and see. Yep, so that's our circle that's going across. So if I wanted to get more of them, let's copy this circle, paste it below, and let's just move it a little bit to a different location. So I'll say like 220, for example, and let's see what that looks like. So now I have 2 of them. One's just in a starting a different location. Let's paste one a little bit above. And now I have 3. So do you get the idea? I could do a whole bunch of these and just move them into different locations, but I can reuse the variables. Another thing I could do is I could just tweak the variables. So instead of all of them just being x, one could be x plus 5 here. So it will be adding 5 on more to once it already goes through the loop and it does x equals x plus 10. Or I could do the same for my WH variable. So I'll take my middle one and I'll just add like 50 to that. So this one will always be 50 pixels larger than everything else. So let's play that and see. Okay, so you see how that one was growing and where the other ones were a lot smaller. So that was a bit much. And that's actually not the one I wanted to target. Anyway, I want to do the middle one, which is this one. So let's just say plus 20. Okay, so this one will be growing larger than the other ones. There we go. So we have that middle one is the larger one growing. All right, or you could just try different things. So you could make them grow at different rates. So this one could be plus 5, and this one could be plus 10, just as an example. So I'm still using the same variables, but within each individual shape, I can do things like I can tweak the other numbers so it puts it in different locations, or I could simply add or subtract onto any of the variables. So I could do, let's say I want my middle one to start in a different location. So currently x starts at 20. Maybe I want my first one to start more in the middle. So I'll say plus 200. This is should be my middle one. So now you can see how that middle one, even though it's using the same variable, is starting in a different location. And now I'm going to actually make it start, I'll make it smaller. So I could even subtract 10. So it's going to be growing at a slower rate than everything else. So it starts further out, but then it grows at a slower rate because I'm always subtracting 10. Yeah. Okay. And then, if things get messy, remember, you don't have to, if you want to turn things off, you can just comment them out and see what it looks like without them. You don't have to delete stuff. And that's kind of a cool effect. Okay, so for practice 6, what I would like you to do is I'd like you to create a sketch that uses the same variable in 3 different shapes. Don't try to reproduce mine in this one. I want you to try to do your own thing. I want you to differentiate the shape's location by placing the shapes in different spots or by adding and subtracting to the variable. So just like what I was doing, so the 3 shapes won't be on top of each other even though they're using the same variable. And if you want, you can do more than one variable. So like I had one variable for my X and one variable for the width and the height. You can do that as well. All right, and then show me what you have.